Knee pain is often not a knee problem, but rather a knee result. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. I have NeuroCoffee in hand and it is perfect. All right. Already been on mentorship calls this morning. Very exciting. Big clinic day today too. So let's go ahead and dive into today's Q&A. And this comes from Vicki. Vicki says, "Hi, Bill." Hi, Vicki. "Hoping you provide some recommendations for my knee issues. I consistently feel pain in the front of my knees with any form of lunge or split squat. I've stretched my quads a lot in an effort to reduce the pressure on my knees, but it doesn't seem to impact it. I'm pretty flexible otherwise, as I can touch my toes easily and squat heels to butt without pain. So I'm a little confused as to why the pain only shows up with my single leg exercises." Okay, so Vicki, this is really actually some good information. We're gonna make a leap here to a small degree, since we didn't get a lot of information, but you did give us some good stuff. With the heels to butt and the toe touch, we're going to make an assumption that you represent a narrow infrasternal angle archetype. And so under those circumstances, what you're going to have is a bias towards an eccentric pelvic outlet, which is going to bias you towards external rotation and an inhaled position. And so oftentimes when people are lowering themselves into a split squat, or any squat for that matter, they have to be able to capture enough internal rotation or enough exhalation bias and concentric orientation of that pelvic outlet to create enough internal pressure to distribute load evenly throughout the body. So what this looks like on the pelvis is that if we're biasing you towards an inhaled position, so there's your narrow IPA there, we have an eccentrically oriented pelvic outlet, so we have a lot of expansion in this downward direction. That's why you're such a good squatter and a toe toucher. But as you're passing through this middle range in the split squat, what we have to have is this exhaled position of the pelvis, which widens that IPA, nutates the sacrum, and that's what allows that concentric pelvic diaphragm to push upward. So if we get that push upward internally, it makes life a whole lot simpler, because now we don't have to rely on extremity force to try to produce all the force to lower us down and then press us back up. So what happens is, if you have to rely on that extremity force, that's where you're getting that extra load on your knees that you don't like. And the nice thing is, it shows up only in your split squat, so chances are structurally the knee is intact. So we're making the assumption that that's the situation, but if your symptoms persist, go ahead and get it checked just to rule out any structural issues. Okay, now, so what we want to do then is we want to reconstruct your ability to produce the exhalation strategy and capture the internal rotation position as you're passing through the bottom of the split squat. So here's what we're going to do first. Number one, we want to try to eliminate any interference that you might have. So again, we don't have a lot of information to go on, so we're going to kind of make this kind of a broad scope recommendation. Number one, you want to try to reduce any compressive strategies that you may have. And so this is anterior posterior in the pelvis, anterior posterior in the thorax. What we want to try to do here, Vicki, is we want to capture the yielding capabilities on the posterior aspect of the thorax and the pelvis as you move from ER to the IR position, and then also maintain enough anterior expansion so we can actually capture that true internal rotated position at the bottom of the split squat. So what we're going to do is we're going to probably look at some gravity reduced situations here. So you can actually start to use what would be traditionally looked at as a glute bridge position. And in this situation, you're going to be moving the hip from a traditionally flexed position to an extended position. But what I'm going to recommend that you do is you put something between your knees that you can squeeze, and that's going to help you maintain the internal rotation moment as you're lifting the pelvis from the floor. Now, here's something that's really, really important. I want to make sure that you capture this bone right here on the ground. So this is your first metatarsal head. It's the bone right behind your big toe. I want to make sure that stays on the ground as with your heel. So you're going to be moving from this position as you initiate your glute bridge. If you don't capture this first metatarsal head on the ground, if you don't feel it on the ground as you're pushing, you're not going to be able to initiate the propulsive element as you lift off the floor in your glute bridge, and you're not going to be able to move towards internal rotation. You're going to stay into that external rotation bias. So very important for you. You're probably also going to want to use some gravity reduced propulsive activities much like you can see on screen right now. And these can move from supine to sideline to prone, depending on where you are in this process. But these are going to start to initiate your ability to push through the ground and start to elevate the pelvic outlet into a concentric orientation, so you can start to capture that internal pressure. If you move to a quadruped situation, we still keep that pelvic outlet unloaded to a degree. But we're also going to be able to start to drive some of this anterior expansion. So we're going to get some up pump handle. We're going to get some anterior expansion in the front of that pelvis. So any number of activities in quadruped, from simple lazy bears to crawling activities, are going to work really, really well. If you can work towards an inverted position at some point in time, what you're going to do is you're going to help maintain that anterior expansion throughout the sticking point, which is your 90 degrees of hip and shoulder flexion, plus or minus about 30, because you're going to have to maintain pressure through that sticking point as you move down into the split squat and push yourself back up. Now, so let's talk about creating the overcoming action with the concentric pelvic outlet. We can use the box squat here. I love to use the box squat here because as soon as you hit the box, you're going to reduce the amount of eccentric excursion that you've got in that pelvic outlet. So the box is going to stop it. You're not going to get any further descent. So it's a great way to start to initiate your ability to capture the concentric outlet and then start to create the overcoming action. So what you may want to do initially is use like a reverse band variation of the box squat. It's going to reduce the differential between the rate at which your body drops and the internal organs. And so it'll help you eliminate the need for any rebound off the bottom, because again, chances are you either got too much eccentric orientation or you don't control the yielding action very well. And so we're going to kind of kill two birds with one stone here with the reverse band. Progress this to a touch and go, so where you're just touching the box and getting off the box so you don't release the concentric orientation. And then I would work on an explosive concentric activity coming off the box as well, with a very, very strong exhalation. So now we're coordinating the exhale strategy, the position of the pelvis, and then the orientation of the pelvic outlet. Then start to increase load, but always make sure that you're maintaining your anterior posterior expansion with your quadruped activities. As we want to work towards your feet into a split orientation, chopping activities are a great way to do this. So we can start with a side split, chopping type of an activity. This actually reduces the gravitational demands on you in split stances. And then we can work towards a staggered stance, chop variation, and then progressively increase the amount of split that you're going to work into. And so we're lowering you down into this IR orientation of the pelvis, this exhaled position of the pelvis. What you want to be able to do, Vicki, is get to half kneeling in these chopping activities without any sense of that anterior knee pressure or pain. Once you can do that, then we can start to worry about load and single leg orientations, like a step up activity where we're starting to really work on that propulsive strategy against gravity in a single leg. Then it's just time to start to work on the split stance. So you can start with some dynamic activities. You can do like short stagger to a longer split in a static position, or you can make it dynamic with the shorter step length to start to introduce that overcoming action. Because remember, the overcoming action is a rate dependent quality. We want stiffer connective tissues under these circumstances. Front foot elevated split squat is a great way to reintroduce your split squats. It's going to reduce the load on that front leg and reduce the demands on that lead leg, and hopefully take some stress off of the knee, as well as you again teach yourself to lower yourself into this internally rotated position. Once you can capture the full range of motion and you want to start to load it, I would start with the contralateral load split squat, as that's going to bias you towards capturing a little bit more of that internal rotation at the bottom of the split squat. So Vicki, I hope this gives you an idea of how you may progress. There are many ways to get to this situation. This is just one representation. Again, it's a little non-specific. You didn't give us a whole lot of information to work with, but it should get you started and working in the right direction. If you have any other questions, please send them to askbillhartman@gmail.com, askbillhartman@gmail.com, and I will see you guys tomorrow.